Exposed. The humiliating moment at our family resort that transformed my relationship forever. Jessica stepped onto the familiar porch of her family's rustic resort, her heart racing with conflicting emotions. The peeling paint and sagging roof seemed to mock her aspirations. Once a vibrant haven for families in need of escape, the resort now lay neglected, a reflection of her own overlooked potential. She felt the weight of her family's legacy pressing down, a silent accusation reminding her that she was the only child, responsible for reviving what had slipped through their fingers. As the family reunion unfolded around her, laughter entwined with awkward glances. Cousins and uncles spoke of successes and promotions, their voices blending into a painful reminder of her own stagnation. Jessica's mind raced. She had spent years juggling demanding shifts as a nurse, climbing her professional ladder, but at what cost? Every triumph felt like a step away from the family she'd once cherished. Through the years, it had become clearer. To succeed outside meant turning her back on her roots. Then, during a toast to celebrate her father's legacy, the tension broke. Her estranged father rose, his voice trembling but resolute. "We've been struggling," he declared, spilling the gut-wrenching truth of their financial troubles. The air thickened, smothering the festive spirit. Jessica's heart sank as shockwaves rippled through the crowd, especially towards a wealthy couple who had turned their backs on small-town life, offering a cruel reminder of the path Jessica yearned for but felt shackled from pursuing. How could she escape and make something of herself? Was that even what she wanted? She felt dizzy, caught in a mental crossfire. Her father, once a towering figure of pride, now appeared a fraction of his former self, a battered man defeated by circumstance. Jessica's throat constricted as she watched her mother's face crumple with disbelief. It was a moment of reckoning, one that shattered the fragile perception she had clung to for so long. Was family worth the burden, or was personal ambition the key to fulfillment? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As she wandered outside, the thick Appalachian woods loomed before her, each tree a witness to her turmoil. She felt tethered to the past, yet suffocated by its demands. Should she ignite the spark of life back into the resort, or should she break away, carving a different destiny for herself?
The whispers of ambition mingled with the calls of loyalty, a persistent echo of her father's disappointed gaze haunting her thoughts. With every passing moment, the weight of her decision pressed down harder, threatening to crush her under its gravity. Standing at the threshold of her childhood home, gazing out at the mountains, she felt the surge of possibility intertwine with despair. This choice, one that could shatter their fragile family unit or redefine her identity, hung in the balance with pulsing intensity. How could she reclaim her life while honoring the past? The answer remained obscured, shrouded in an oppressive cloud of uncertainty. And with this swirling chaos in her heart, she realized the real journey had only just begun. Jessica's mind spun as she walked into the shelter of the towering trees, seeking clarity among the competing voices in her head. Each step felt like a deliberate choice between her family's expectations and her own desires, a push and pull that mirrored the struggle within her heart. She needed to think, needed to feel what she truly wanted. Each crack of a twig beneath her feet echoed her indecision, a cruel reminder of the choices she had yet to confront. What would it mean to take control of the resort? Was she prepared to dip her hands into the dirt of family legacy, risking failure and further embarrassment? The question gnawed at her. Could reviving the resort become a conduit for personal expression, or would it simply be a reflection of the unfulfilled dreams of others? With the wilderness enveloping her, she instinctively wandered into familiar paths. Memories of childhood summers splashed through her mind. Days spent fishing with her father, laughter echoing through the family cabin, the way sunlight filtered through leaves, casting playful shadows. Those moments shimmered with a warmth that stood in stark contrast to the cold reality she faced now. Could that warmth be reclaimed, or had the past irreversibly slipped away? As she reached a clearing, the raucous call of a crow broke her reverie. She drew a shaky breath, forced herself to confront her greatest fear. Perhaps this isn't about being a caretaker, but a creator. Could she utilize her hospital wisdom to renew the resort? The seeds of a plan began to take root, but she felt a growing panic as logistics flooded her thoughts. Financial investments, marketing strategies, permits, endless layers of bureaucracy. Jessica sank to a fallen log, watching sunlight filtered down in golden streams. There had to be creative solutions amidst the red tape. The small, resilient community seemed to stir her heart with determination. Could she enlist those who shared her nostalgia? Her cousins thrived in hospitality. They could be allies instead of adversaries. Confronting them would require vulnerability, but what was ambition with some exposure to risk? The internal dialogues morphed into quiet affirmations.
To revive the resort meant more than saving a dilapidated building. It signified gathering her shattered aspirations and piecing them back together as a mosaic of triumph and legacy. As she spoke softly to herself, affirming the steps she might take, another realization crept in like a morning fog. She was more capable than she had previously allowed herself to believe. The looming questions of financial burdens and personal sacrifice transformed into motivational fuel rather than insurmountable obstacles. The resort could become her proving ground, a canvas for her ideas and her leadership. What could it mean for her relationships, for her parents? Perhaps she could show them growth embraced rather than feared. But then discomfort flooded her thoughts. How to approach her father? This pivotal conversation would surely unravel layers of unspoken resentment, of guilt laced within family dynamics. However, dare she allow herself to be vulnerable for the sake of growth? Suddenly aware of the time slipping away like grains of sand, Jessica rose decisively, brimming with a newfound resilience. She had transformed her landscape from doubt to determination. As she headed back to the resort, her heart beat with an unfamiliar rhythm of purpose. The next step awaited her, an unpredictable venture into the unknown realm of family expectations and her aspirations. But what would unfold when she confronted her father, laying bare her intentions? Would he embrace her ambition or push her back into the shadows? The moment of truth was drawing near, the tension building in her chest as she approached the home that held her past and her future. As Jessica stepped through the familiar, creaking door of the family home, the air seemed to shimmer with unspoken words. The once comforting sense of sandalwood and freshly brewed coffee blended into a thick fog of expectation that made her hesitate. Her pulse quickened, a reminder of the stakes she had set for herself. Today would not just be another mundane visit. It carried the weight of her ambition. Her father sat at the kitchen table, a fortress of newspapers and scattered documents surrounding him like a protective barrier. The faint hint of his aftershave reached her, a nostalgic assault on her senses. Crafted from memories of better times, it now mingled uncomfortably with her sense of impending confrontation. She steeled herself, summoning every shred of resolve she'd gathered during her walk through the woods. "Dad, can we talk?" His eyes flicked up, momentarily startled, before settling back into the familiar wariness she had come to know. "Jessica, I didn't expect you today. Everything all right?" His casual tone cloaked an underlying concern, but she could feel the shift, the weight of their shared history hanging heavily in the air. "Actually, I've been thinking a lot," she began, her voice quavering slightly, as it often did when she was vulnerable. "About the resort." She watched as his demeanor shifted.
The veil of indifference faded, replaced by an intensity she hadn't encountered in years. "I want to revitalize it, make it more than it was." A silence hung between them, pregnant with disbelief. Jessica could scarcely breathe as his brows deepened into a frown. This was not the response she'd hoped for. A barrage of questions ricocheted in her mind. Had she chosen the wrong moment? Was this a mistake? "Jessica, you know the state place is in. It needs more than a coat of paint and a few new signs. It requires a significant investment, and, well," his voice faltered, but not his resolve. "It's not realistic." "I'm not talking about just repairs. I'm thinking about what it could become. Using what I know from the hospital, how I've learned to innovate under pressure, she boldly interjected, igniting a fire within her. I want to create experiences, a healing space, a refuge. His grimace deepened, revealing layers of fears she was beginning to recognize, past failures, a legacy, and a father's fears for his only daughter. But she wouldn't back down. She couldn't afford to. Dad, we're only limited by our imagination. I can do this, she pressed on, her voice unwavering now, as if each word was a stepping stone toward her future. He leaned back, crossing his arms as if physically constructing a wall against her dreams. And what if you fail? You're risking so much for a place that's been a burden to our family. The resort has been nothing but trouble. Jessica's heart raced. Was he right? A flash of doubt pierced through her newfound determination. But then she remembered why she was fighting. Her childhood laughter, the warmth of joyous summers. It's not just a burden to me, Dad. It's a legacy that has the power to heal, to reconnect. It's my chance to step out from behind your shadow and create something meaningful. Silence filled the space, thick and heavy, but she saw the flicker of something in his eyes, perhaps interest or something deeper. I don't want you to set yourself up for disappointment, he finally said, the tension in his voice threading through her resolve. A knot tightened in her chest, but she pushed down the gnawing fear. This was just the beginning. If she hoped to shake the dust off the resort, she needed to ascertain her father's trust, both as a daughter and as a capable adult. Then help me. The words poured out of her as she grasped this moment of vulnerability, appealing not only to his authority, but also to their bond. Help you? To what end? His eyes narrowed, and she recognized the clash of doubt and hope swimming behind his carefully constructed facade. The end where we both reclaim what we lost, together, she replied, her voice steady as she dared to hold his gaze. Their bond hung in the balance, poised delicately between fear and possibility, newly defined. As he considered her words, a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. Would he believe in her enough to be a partner, even if that partnership began with uncertainty? The stakes were higher than ever, and the conversation was only the beginning. Jessica could feel the ground shifting beneath her, a precipice leading to high honor or terrible disappointment. Would she leap together with him, or would her father remain rooted firmly in the past? And as the silence dragged on, the answer lay in the next moments that threatened to reshape their future forever. The weight of her words hung in the air as Jessica met her father's steady gaze. She was on the brink of either forging a new path or retreating into familiar shadows. Realizing the precariousness of the moment, she took a deep breath and clenched her fists. This was no longer just about the resort. It was about herself, her identity, and breaking free from a legacy that had started to feel more like a shackle than a shield. Yes, Dad, she urged, her voice a blend of fear and determination. We have to reclaim this place, not just for us, but for everyone whose lives it could touch. It's bigger than both of us. His expression, a tapestry of conflict and concern, gradually morphed into something resembling curiosity. And what do you plan to do? Go to the bank and ask for a loan? You haven't even worked in the real world since... His voice trailed off. The memories of her long hours in the hospital, of saving lives amid chaos, suddenly weighing heavily on them both. She sensed the strain in his voice, a subtle acknowledgement of her capabilities that offered both a lifeline and a challenge. I may not have traditional experience in business, she conceded, but I've faced life and death situations, managed chaos, and adapted to new environments every single day. I have skills that could breathe new life into our legacy. The flicker in his eyes grew stronger, but the walls he'd constructed were still clearly in place. Intentions alone won't change anything. This isn't a game, Jessica. How can you assure me you won't end up disappointed, again? His words ignited a flicker of defiance deep within her. Disappointment is part of growth, she countered. But if I don't try, I'll always be haunted by what if. I won't let fear dictate my life anymore. The time has come for action, for risk, for us, together. Another pause. Jessica could almost hear the gears grinding in her father's mind, weighing possibilities while wrestling with his instincts to protect her. Deep down, she questioned what fears of his were holding him back. Whatever they were, it was clear they were inextricably linked to her own anxieties. Let's meet tomorrow, he finally said, the
the weariness in his voice softening just slightly. "Come with a plan. I want to see what you envision, how you plan to implement it." It was faint, but she detected a note of concession in his voice. A rush of adrenaline surged through her. Meeting him where he stood, she nodded, steadied by this crack in his armor. "I promise you, it'll be worth it." The thrill of anticipation mingled with her doubts, and as she prepared to leave, she wondered whether this moment would be the catalyst she needed to propel her forward. There was something invigorating about the prospect of having her father's support, even if it was fragile and uncertain. That night, the familiar comfort of her childhood room wrapped around her. Yet, as she sat on the edge of the bed, she couldn't help but reflect on how pivotal this next day would be. With every fiber of her being, she knew she had to articulate her vision in a way that would not only win his support, but also empower herself. Jessica's mind raced, filled with outlines of plans that leapt and danced in her consciousness. She had to merge practicality with her passion, crafting an argument that would compel him to see their shared dream rather than his fears. But was her ambition truly sustainable? Could she account for the financial realities and the emotional weight tied to the resort's past? These questions gnawed at her, and she realized that to succeed, she would need more than optimism. She required clarity, strategy, and maybe even a team she hadn't yet found. Little did she know that by the time dawn broke and she began to pen her notes, an unforeseen obstacle would put her ambitions to the ultimate test. Would she rise to meet the challenge or crumble under the mounting pressure? The clock was ticking, and the stakes were steeper than ever. Tomorrow would not just be a meeting, it would be the crucible where her dreams would either be forged into reality or extinguished before they could ignite. Jessica woke with a jolt, her heart racing. Echoes of her father's doubts were playing in her mind. The morning light spilled through her window, illuminating the countless plans plastered across the pages of her notebook, ideas swirling for how to turn the decaying resort into a thriving hub of community and opportunity. Yet, as she reread her notes, a pit formed in her stomach. These words, heavy with aspiration, seemed to mock her newfound resolve. What if she couldn't bring this vision to life? An unpleasant thought crept in uninvited. What if her life and death skills from the hospital couldn't translate to business? Shaking off the fear, Jessica decided to ground herself in her own experiences. She thought about the countless times she had stepped into chaos, the sterile hospital ward projecting her onto the front lines, commanding those around her, guiding them through uncertainty. There had to be a way to harness that capability here. Determined, she dug deeper into her preparations. The plan would have two sides, the emotional resonance and the logistical framework. She would intertwine the stories of those whose lives the resort had changed with a clear strategy for revitalization. It had to be authentic, touching, something that would speak to her father's protective instincts, but not drown him in nostalgia. With her notes fully drafted, she committed to assembling a visual presentation. She gathered old photographs of the resort's glory days, families enjoying the pool, children digging in the sand, laughter that echoed through the halls. Each snapshot conveyed what the resort meant not just to her family, but to the community that had come to rely on it as a retreat, a sanctuary. Time slipped by faster than she could manage, and soon she was dressed, a mild excitement bubbling beneath her anxious exterior. As she drove to the resort, she rehearsed her pitch in her mind, every line honing her message, every pause emphasizing her determination. Yet, just as she parked the car, clouds darkened her thoughts. What if her vision did not resonate? What if her father felt further removed from his legacy after all her preparations? She leaned against the car momentarily, taking a deep breath to calm the storm within. Stepping into the past would require more than bravado. It needed clarity of motive and belief in herself. As she walked into the main building, the air thick with history, nostalgia clung to her like a second skin. The peeling paint on the walls seemed to whisper the stories of her childhood, each nook a chapter of who she had been and who she could become. But as she approached her father, seated at a long table covered with old resort deeds, she felt the stakes surge. This was not about simply restoring a building. It was about redefining their family's future. "Hey there," he greeted, studying her face. "Hi, Dad. I hope you're ready to see what I'm thinking." She could sense his skepticism, the wariness evident in his eyes. He gestured for her to begin, but remained silent, crossing his arms tight against his chest. That stance sent a chill down her spine. Taking a deep breath, Jessica opened her PowerPoint presentation and laid the foundation for her vision. As she spoke about revitalizing the resort, anecdotes danced off her tongue, illustrating the connection between community and the legacy she hoped to revive. Yet, just as she saw a flicker of interest in his eyes at the story she told, a sudden knock shattered her focus. Her mother entered, the warmth of her presence stark against the chilly tension between father and daughter. "What's this?" her mother asked, glancing at the screen. In that moment, she felt the precarious balance of her plans begin to shift. With her mother's gaze upon them, the opportunity for connection quickly turned into an evaluation of the past, and dreams tangled in unresolved emotions, threatening to unravel everything Jessica had hoped to achieve. Determined to withstand the sudden turbulence, Jessica's mind raced. How could she navigate this unexpected challenge? As her mother positioned herself beside her father, their united front was an intimidating barrier.
Would she be able to push through this familial tension, or risk being swept aside, lost in their fears? The hour slipped rapidly, and the room felt smaller as the discussion deepened. Old wounds and new ambitions collided, weaving a complex fabric of their shared history. Jessica realized she needed to rethink her approach. Would her vision withstand this new scrutiny, or had she already lost momentum? The crossroads loomed before her, and certainty slipped through her fingers. Amid the rising tension, a new, unexpected voice echoed in the background, a neighbor who had visited the resort as a child. Would their insight fortify Jessica's stance, or would it reveal more profound divisions? In that moment, the stakes climbed higher still. The room fell silent as Jessica's childhood neighbor stepped forward, her presence a blend of nostalgia and tension. The woman, a lively reminiscence of laughter-filled summers, seemed blissfully unaware of the undercurrents swirling among the three of them. "Wow, I remember this place like it was yesterday," the neighbor began, her voice steady, but with the weight of cherished memories. "You know, my parents brought me here when I was little. It was nothing short of magic for me." Jessica's heart raced. This was the moment she'd been hoping for. She had envisioned stories like this enhancing her pitch, validating her intention to revive what once flourished. Yet she could feel the walls around her father tighten. "That was a long time ago," he replied, his tone dismissive, but the flicker of interest beneath his skepticism was undeniable. The neighbor, oblivious to the shift in atmosphere, continued, "But your dad really knew how to make this place special. Every Saturday night we had bonfires by the shore, and the food, oh, the food, it was the highlight of my visits." Jessica seized the opportunity to pivot the conversation. "See, Dad? There's a reason people remember this place. It's not just bricks and mortar. It's about the experiences, the memories. We can bring that magic back." For a moment, her father appeared to soften, the corner of his mouth twitching, revealing a hint of a smile as he relived the memories. But then it vanished, as though he realized the vulnerability they both shared in that wistfulness. His arms tightened again, fist clenching resolutely. "I get that there's a history here, Jess," he said slowly, his gaze piercing through her like a scalpel. "But you have to consider the realities. The property has been a business. It's not just a sentiment. We lost money year after year, and the world has changed. What makes you think you can succeed where I failed?" Her stomach nodded, but she refused to back down. "Because it's not just about the resort, Dad. It's about embracing what this place meant to our family and the community. I understand the responsibilities ahead, but I also know how to lead a team through crisis and chaos. That's what I've done my whole career." The memories shared by the neighbor had ignited a passion inside her, but doubt sparked in the silence that followed. Could she truly translate her skills in medicine to a realm far removed from the sterile corridors of the hospital? "You think you can just dive in and do this?" her mother interjected, her voice heavy with confrontation. "What do you even know about running a resort? You've spent your life saving lives, not managing business strategies." Her words struck deep. Jessica's pulse quickened as she grappled with internal turmoil. Did she have the right experience for this? The doubt she had fought to banish clawed back at her, digging deep. "I know how to identify needs, how to respond to emergencies, how to build a connection in unpredictable environments. Isn't that what running a resort is?" She paused, allowing her words to settle. There was a new clarity emerging. She had never perceived her hospital skills as directly transferable to business until this moment. As she looked around the room, she could see her father's pondering gaze, still guarded but less disdainful. The tension was palpable, the air thick with the weight of expectations and family legacies. The neighbor watched them closely, perhaps sensing the impasse. "You know," she said slowly, "every challenge that comes with a place like this is just part of its journey. It's like each patient you've taken care of, Jess. They bring their own stories. You can't save them all, but every life you touch matters." Her words resonated deeply, echoing through Jessica's very core. If she could find value in every single patient, why couldn't she apply that same belief here? She could redefine what success meant, here and now. Jessica felt renewed determination surge within her, despite the uncertainty facing her. Just like the patients, every visitor to this resort deserves care and attention. What if we develop a strategy focused on connection with our guests? Personalized experiences could be our strength. Her father's eyes narrowed slightly, curiosity battling skepticism. Could Jessica hold her own in a field he had ruled for so long? As the room's energy shifted, the chance for openness cracked through the barriers they built. But a new wave of doubts nipped at her heels. Was her vision strong enough to carry through the challenges waiting to emerge? Before she could ask herself further, a knock echoed through the door again, heavier this time. Another neighbor, someone Jessica had least expected, stepped into the room. Would their arrival steer the conversation in her favor or plunge them deeper into family discord? In that instant, Jessica realized that exposing her dreams and aspirations might peel back layers she thought were long settled. What truths, what unresolved tensions would this new voice unearth? She steeled herself. This journey was just beginning. As the door swung open, a sharp gasp filled the room.
There stood Mark, childhood friend and the person Jessica had secretly admired for years. His entrance disrupted the mounting tension with a wave of unexpected nostalgia. "Jess?" he exclaimed, the surprise in his voice mingling with affection. "I didn't expect to see you here." Unlike the formal interactions with her parents, Mark's presence stirred a feeling deep within her, a blend of warmth and vulnerability. Jessica forced a smile, aware of her father's disapproving gaze shifting toward Mark, assessing the situation critically. "Oh, Mark, it's been so long," she replied, trying to mask her racing emotions beneath a layer of casual enthusiasm. "Too long," he said, stepping further inside. "I heard about your plans to revitalize the resort. That's bold, Jess." His approving tone sparked a flicker of confidence within her. But the warmth was fleeting. Mark's straightforward support clashed against the skepticism radiating from her family. Her father cleared his throat, clearly irritated by the intrusion. "We were in the middle of an important discussion." "I can see that," Mark said, unfazed. "But how can I help? I've heard amazing stories about summers here, and I'm all for revitalizing that magic. I'd love to contribute." Jessica's heart swelled. This was the validation she needed. "Mark, do you really think we could?" She leaned in, her ambition igniting as ideas cascaded. Imagine curating events that capture the essence of those memories, engaging the community, bringing back guests who remember why they loved it here in the first place. Mark's enthusiasm mirrored hers. "That's exactly what you should do. These stories are the lifeblood of the resort. People crave connection, especially now." Her parents exchanged glances, the tension re-emerging like storm clouds gathering in the sky. Her father spoke, the authoritative timbre stark against the lightness unveiled by Mark. "Mark, while I appreciate your eagerness, this isn't a mere nostalgia trip. The financial aspects must be our priority. Do you have any concrete plans?" Jessica felt a rush of urgency. She had been caught up in the emotional reckoning of the moment. It was time to make her vision more than just words. She needed a strategy. "Dad, what if we framed this as a business model? We could analyze local trends in tourism, create packages that blend wellness with personal experiences. I could organize retreats aimed at self-discovery, just like I did in my medical career." A beat of contemplation passed before her father responded, his tone softening as the importance of her ambition began to register. But as he prepared to respond, Mark interjected impulsively. "And I can help you organize logistics, outreach, everything I learned from managing my dad's company." "Yes, together we could really engage with our visitors and foster a loyalty that can help drive the success of the resort," Jessica exclaimed, exhilaration surging through her. Yet, refreshing enthusiasm collided sharply with her mother's skepticism. "This isn't just a pet project, Jessica. You'll have to surround yourself with professionals who understand the business. What makes you think you can execute this with no experience?" Jessica faltered, doubt gnawing at her core once more. Each query felt like another layer of her defenses crumbling. Did she truly have the knowledge to navigate these uncharted waters? She clung to her resolute spirit, reminding herself of the lives she'd saved. If she could maneuver through life and death challenges, surely this was another puzzle to solve. Mom, I may not have the traditional business background, but I can apply my skills in leadership and empathy here just as I did in the hospital. Connecting with people is my strength. Isn't this what every successful business thrives on? Are you ready to take on this responsibility when you haven't even begun to understand the complexities involved? Her mother countered, emphasizing the weight of expectation. A silence draped the room once more, punctuated only by Mark's watchful eyes, filled with concern for her unwavering struggle. As the air crackled with anticipation, Jessica felt a moment of clarity wash over her. I believe in the value of our history and the potential to reshape it. I'm ready to confront each challenge, take risks, and grow. Her father's expression shifted. Hesitant contemplation danced in his eyes, the walls around his skepticism wavering. But looming above the budding optimism was another feeling she could not shake: fear. The fear that even with the best plans, she may not be able to revive what had long been lost. And yet, as the weight of doubt threatened to crush her spirit, she took a tentative step forward, committed to taking the first stride into the unknown. But just then, as if the universe sought to affirm her every doubt, Mark's phone chimed. He glanced at the message, his brows furrowing. Ladies and gentlemen, I hate to derail this moment, but there's a community meeting happening literally across the street regarding the resort's future. The locals are concerned about changes, and, well, they're looking for input. Jessica's stomach dropped, the realization hitting her like a thunderclap. The conversation she thought was building momentum was suddenly at risk of being disrupted by local survivors of a bygone era who might resist change even more fiercely than her family. As anticipation hung thick in the air, she knew one thing: she couldn't just stand by and let the moment slip away. She had to confront both her family's doubts and the community's fears, and that was the next challenge waiting just beyond the threshold. Would she rise to the occasion or falter under the weight of unresolved contention? Jessica could feel the tremor of uncertainty in her hands as she stood on the cusp of a decisive moment.
Mark's unexpected revelation about the community meeting crystallized her internal conflict. Should she push forward and embrace the change she envisioned for the resort, even if it meant facing opposition from entrenched locals? "I need to go," she declared suddenly, her voice steady yet laced with urgency. Mark blinked, caught off guard by her abruptness. If people are worried about changes, I need to hear their concerns directly. Her parents exchanged skeptical glances, but Jessica was unwavering. This was an opportunity to confront her fears head-on, to demonstrate that hers was not a mere fantasy, but a realistic vision bolstered by a genuine willingness to listen and learn. "Jess, wait," Mark said, stepping forward, a hint of caution in his tone. "It might be a hostile environment. Have you thought this through?" Flashes of doubt flickered across her mind, but she pushed them aside. "I can't delay. If we don't address their concerns, how can we move forward?" Each word landed heavily in the room, forcing the gravity of her commitment to settle in. "Fine," Mark agreed, his expression shifting to one of reluctant admiration. "But I'm going with you." In the swiftly rolling minutes, they made their way across the street. The sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting deep shadows that seemed to mirror the weight on her shoulders. The community center loomed ahead, a structure heavy with history and the memories of countless gatherings. Jessica's heart raced, a cocktail of determination and anxiety thrumming through her veins. As they entered, the atmosphere turned noticeably tense. Locals, some familiar faces from her childhood, sat in huddles, their expressions hardened, eyes reflecting years of skepticism toward outsiders. Jessica felt the biting chill of criticism before even uttering a word. Would they welcome her ambition or disregard it as just another misguided attempt to modernize what they held dear? Mark, sensing her apprehension, gave her a reassuring nod, and she leaned into his support. As she began to introduce herself, the murmurs around the room stilled. "I'm Jessica. I used to spend my summers here, and the resort—" She paused, breathing through the anxiety clawing at her. "I believe it has so much potential to be a part of our community again." The response was immediate. Voices rose, some hostile, others curious, each laden with history and hesitation. "What do you know about running this place?" one man challenged, his brow furrowed in suspicion. She tightened her grip on the edge of the podium, heart pounding. "I've learned that connection is key, whether it's in the medical field or here. People want to feel they belong somewhere. I want to create that feeling again." But doubt gnawed at her. Was she building a bridge or a wall? Each reaction volleyed back her way pressed on her confidence. They didn't see her potential. They saw another outsider wanting to reshape their identity.
Then a woman from the back stood, her demeanor fierce. Are you here to listen or to dictate what we must change for your fancy ideas? The question landed as hard as a punch. Jessica swallowed as the room held its breath, waiting for her response. This was her moment. She could press deeper into her vision or seal the cracks in her resolve. "I'm here to listen," she managed, voice even, "to understand what made this place special to all of you. I won't ignore your history. It's part of every new chapter I want to write." Mark shifted beside her, sensing her internal battle. He placed a hand on her shoulder and offered a supportive squeeze, which sent a wave of calm flowing through her. A hostile crowd could very well become her fiercest critics or her greatest allies. Determined, she leaned in. "Let's talk. What do you love about this resort? What should never be changed?" The tension crumbled slightly as she engaged them in a conversation instead of a confrontation. As they began to share memories, stories of carefree summers, of laughter and gathering, the room shifted. But as she listened, absorbing their passion, an unsettling thought clawed at the corners of her mind. Was she truly ready to bridge the gap between nostalgia and innovation? Could she endure the anxiety of potentially harsh realities while nurturing possibilities for the future? The meeting continued, revealing the community's heart and fears. But buried beneath their nostalgia was an undeniable truth she would have to face. Change ignited resistance, yet it also birthed growth. As their voices unfolded stories of the past, Jessica understood that confronting the complexities of their emotional ties would reveal her own hidden strengths, ones she was unsure she possessed. And then, just as she began to sense a fragile alliance forming, someone stood with an accusation against her vision, claiming she might dismantle the very spirit of the resort. There it was, a challenge that could unravel everything she had painstakingly built with her words. "I'm here to protect what makes this place special," the man shouted, igniting a series of nods within the room. Jessica's pulse quickened. The moment had arrived for her to defend her intentions and prove her resolve. The stakes had never felt higher. Would she rise and confront this challenge bravely, or falter beneath the weight of expectations and fears of the very community she sought to inspire? Jessica stood at the edge of uncertainty, the eyes of the room piercing into her. Each gaze radiated skepticism, barbed with the weight of history. She took a steadying breath, her mind racing to reconstruct a response that would not only diffuse the tension, but reaffirm her commitment to the very community she wished to uplift. "Protecting this place doesn't mean rejecting change," she began, her voice resonating with a newfound strength. "Change is a part of life. It doesn't erase what we love. It builds upon it. Together, we can honor the past while nurturing the future." As the murmurs floated through the room, Jessica felt the warmth of hope begin to reclaim the air, but the shadow of doubt remained looming. She was treading a fine line, seeking acceptance yet ready to face rejection, and part of her feared that she might lose this battle before it began. One by one, the locals offered their memories, recounting treasured times spent at the resort, the laughter, the gatherings, the sense of belonging it provided. With every story, Jessica's heart swelled, but also sank. They spoke of what they loved, yet she realized the limitations of her knowledge. How could she redesign the experience without fully understanding the intricate tapestry of their memories? Amid their narratives, Jessica identified a gap. Their collective past was vibrant, yet there was no shared vision for the future. What if we came together to create something that embodies both our memories and the possibilities ahead? She proposed, an idea sparking in her mind. The room quieted again, but this time in contemplation rather than confrontation. She seized the moment, pressing on. "I am willing to invest not just my ideas, but my time, my resources. I want to be a part of this community. What do you all envision for the resort? What dreams do you still hold?" A few locals exchanged glances, their expressions hinting at a shift, a willingness to consider her presence as an ally rather than an intruder. Jessica's pulse thrummed in rhythm with their hesitations and hopes. The longing for connection began to eclipse the fear of change, if only just. As discussions unfolded, Jessica began to see fragments of potential solutions emerge: an expanded role for local vendors, workshops celebrating the area's culture, even revitalizing spaces that honored their traditions. These ideas flowed freely now, with each voice adding color to a canvas she had hesitantly reached towards. Yet a lingering uncertainty gnawed at Jessica's core. Was her presence truly welcome, or was this merely a momentary reprieve from resistance? She could feel the undercurrents of doubt still present, threatening to resurface. The smile of one elder was tempered by the furrow of another's brow. As the meeting drew to a close, Jessica realized that she had crafted a temporary alliance, yet the path forward was fraught with uncertainty. "I appreciate your honesty and openness tonight," she concluded, determination wrapping around her like armor. "I pledge to work with you and keep these conversations alive. My vision for the resort will only succeed if it reflects our shared values and dreams." The tentative applause that followed signaled a shift in the air, but it was more than just acceptance. It was a critical juncture for her as well. She had entered the meeting full of doubt, but she left with a flicker of clarity, a commitment to confront her fears and embrace this partnership. Walking out into the cool evening air, her mind buzzed. Mark walked beside her, offering a quiet sense of shared accomplishment. "You held your ground in a tough spot," he praised, an admiration evident in his tone. Jessica felt the swell of pride at his words, but beneath it was a flicker of anxiety. She had tasted a measure of success today, but could she keep the community engaged as the plans became reality? Hefting the weight of both possibility and pressure, she processed her next steps, aware that the true battle had only just begun. What she didn't anticipate was the unforeseen repercussions of her decisions waiting just around the corner, those who would continue to resist and those who might stand to benefit from divisions growing deeper. Steeling herself, she realized it was time to take action. "Tomorrow I meet with the board on my proposals," she announced, absorbing the weight of that moment. "If we're going to bring everyone on board, I need clear objectives to present." Mark nodded, a flicker of concern crossing his features. "Just be careful, Jess. It's a complex dance you're navigating." As they approached the car, the tension within her twisted, vaporizing the warmth from the evening. Her resolve had been strengthened, but what other challenges awaited? Suddenly, an unseen figure emerged from the shadows, a familiar face, brandishing hidden resentment and unresolved animosities. "I hope you're ready to face a real challenge," the figure warned, eyes flashing. "You can't please everyone." A rush of adrenaline surged through Jessica. She was fully aware that her journey was just beginning, a labyrinth of complexities in which everything was at stake. Would she be prepared to confront the turbulence that accompanied the very dream she sought to realize? The moment had arrived once more to face the very heart of her vision. Jessica awoke the following day with fresh resolve coursing through her veins. The conversations from last night's community meeting replayed in her mind, a quilt of memories embroidered with hope and skepticism. Yet beneath that blanket of uncertainty, a new certainty rested. She was willing to transform what had once been a burden into a promise for the community and herself. The meeting with her father that morning felt like the culmination of all her efforts thus far. Jessica had spent hours refining her proposals, weaving her vision of change grounded in community voices and the legacy of the resort. As she drove to the family home, each mile felt like a step toward reclaiming her identity, a shift from being merely a caretaker of the family legacy to being its author. Entering the dining room, she found her father seated with notes sprawled across the table, exhaustion noticeable on his features. "You are early," he remarked, offering her attentive smile, one that hinted at his own vulnerabilities. "Dad, I've been thinking hard about the resort, and I believe I've come up with a plan." She laid her portfolio down decisively, her heartbeat matching the rhythm of her determination. It involves engaging local businesses and community involvement to create a viable future. As she detailed her ideas, mixing innovative offerings with nostalgic reminders, her father listened intently, brows furrowing at points and nodding at others. "It's ambitious," he remarked finally, allowing her glimmer of hope to swell for a moment. "But ambitious plans need solid foundations. Have you addressed the financials?" "I have," she replied with newfound confidence, pulling out financial projections and schedules she had crafted meticulously. Each detail, for the first time, was not just about that old legacy, but about mutual growth, hope, and the intertwining of herself with the community. As they talked through the logistics, Jessica finally saw something shift in her father's eyes, an acknowledgement of her competence he had long withheld. "It's not just about savings or profit, it's about creating experiences that make visitors feel at home," she explained passionately. "We can adapt, but we must maintain the heart of the resort. its memories. The dialogue ebbed and flowed, each back and forth bridging the gaps between their thoughts, his worries met by her solutions, his skepticism tempered by her resolve. They weren't just two voices clashing, they were shaping a singular vision, built on compromise, understanding, and a shared past, out of which Jessica would forge her future. "That sounds promising," her father finally conceded, pride warming his voice. "I want to help you." His willingness to join her didn't go unnoticed. She felt the weight of years of disappointment evaporate, replaced with a renewed sense of partnership. "Together, we can make this happen, Dad," she declared. Stepping into the light outside, Jessica felt the gravitational pull of ambition meld beautifully with family ties. The next phase of her journey was taking shape. This wasn't simply about reviving a resort, it was the revival of intertwined lives. She now envisioned brainstorming sessions not just filled with spreadsheets, but with laughter, a celebration of history fused with future possibilities. Later that week, the first preliminary plans began to materialize in the community, a brainstorming session co-hosted by both Jessica and her father. The energy crackled in the room, each voice another puzzle piece falling into place, constructing a shared vision. Emotions ebbed and flowed, even as each participant offered insights, from the old-timers reminiscing about the past to the young locals eager for change. Jessica felt the children of the village swarm around her during a break, giggling and asking excited questions about what the new resort might hold. It filled her with satisfaction. She wasn't merely rekindling a family business. She was weaving herself back into the fabric of a community she had once felt distant from.
As the months passed, progress reports cascaded in. The financial projections Jessica had valiantly crafted were turning from sheer numbers into promising statistics. Interest was surging, the local business economy revitalizing, from the grandparents to the youths, all eager to embrace the rebirth of their cherished retreat. One crisp evening, as Jessica stood overlooking the flourishing resort, she felt a surge of confidence wash over her. This wasn't merely a triumph of changing the mulch in flower beds or redecorating. It was an overwhelming sense of having conquered her own fears and aspirations, her determination mapping a future built on all that had passed. Yet, amid the victories, she had learned that true recognition lay not solely in applause, but in growth. She remembered once feeling shackled by family expectations. Now they had become a source of strength. Her mother, cautiously optimistic, and her father, a steadfast ally, were both more than supportive. They were now co-creators of this living legacy. As she celebrated with her parents at the grand reopening, the laughter echoed through the new wings of the resort. Each corner of the space shimmered with the echo of life, the nostalgic laughter joining forces with the unmistakable vibrancy of new experiences. Jessica had achieved not just the revival of a place, but the construction of a reinforced family dynamic, one that had helped her understand the deep intertwine between ambition and roots. She had transformed in attitude, skills, and bond, recognizing that achievements extend beyond tangible landmarks. They rest in relationships nurtured with understanding and fueled by passion. As the sunset bathed the resort in golden hues, warmth blossomed in her chest. She felt the embrace of everything she had once strived to reconcile, each thread woven into a tapestry of fulfillment. In that moment, Jessica knew she had proven to herself above anyone else that she could conquer doubts, innovate, and lead through love. The journey that began with uncertainty had transformed into a vibrant reality, forged through resilience, empowerment, and harmonious relationships. Jessica now recognized her own voice, a symphony in which the past, present, and future resonated harmoniously. She realized she had finally created not just a legacy, but a solid foundation for those to come, each heartbeat against the backdrop of her family's enduring story. Her story. And as the jubilant laughter echoed around her, she thought, this was merely the beginning.